is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.
Remain. In the competition formerly known as World's Fastest Gamer, the winner from this qualifying series gets themselves a ticket to the semi-finals at the McLaren Technology Center in Woking. I am Connery Maddock. Joining me today for the broadcast will be the one, the only Paul Smith, also directing the cameras out there on circuit as well. Just having a little bit of a look at the track conditions. Things are partly cloudy. We're in the morning here at the Circuit of the Americas. 26 degrees in the air, 29 degrees on the track as qualifying is starting to get itself over and done with. But Paul, it's yet another week of McLaren Shadow, and it's going to be a rather interesting one considering the size of the field that we have.
Yeah, good evening, and it's not the biggest of fields, let's be honest with you here, and we're looking forward to getting this race up and running, because we have... The thing is, last week's race, it wasn't that bad. We were at Zolder last week, we had a 9-car grid, and we still had a pretty good battle between Marcus Jensen and another one of the drivers as well. Now, interesting thing here, Connery, is that Marcus is not taking part today. So it's going to give somebody an opportunity to be able to go for a win that they maybe wouldn't have had the chance with Marcus around.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the points leader that is not here today. Marcus Jensen, of course, doing very, very well in the Grand Prix portion of this series. Those first 5 rounds, won all 5 of them. And we've also got himself a couple of wins early on this season as well. So he is feeling pretty confident enough to even perhaps give this one a miss for this week, as we will click over to the race session right now as the drivers will grid themselves up behind that iRacing roof pace car, and we'll go through the grid. Looking at pole position then, it is Ross Yost there, right at the front of the field at 205.1. Jace Merrick, 0.3 of a second, exactly a third of a second then behind Ross on qualifying. We've got Martin Ware and we've got Leonardo Visolini there further down, P number 4, and then you've got a smattering of no qualifying times set, so these are going to be graded on iRacing. It's Frederick Povert, you've got James Wallace and Adam Horwood rounding out your 7-car grid. So as these guys decide to get themselves up onto their starting positions right now, they'll pull away in just a couple of moments since everyone is there and raring to go. What do you expect from this race, Paul? Do we expect things to spread out pretty quickly, or are these gonna actually give us a little bit of a show despite the small field? I'm
really hoping that these guys give us a good show here, because they've got a good opportunity to give us a bit of a display on this one. And well, Circuit of the Americas does actually produce some good racing, and especially in GT cars, so hopefully you've got a few drivers that'll be able to be in and around each other and be able to challenge one another. But certainly, as we get ready for the start of this one, these guys, they've got a challenge on their hands, that's for sure, and keeping this car on the track is a lot more difficult than you would imagine, especially with this McLaren. It's a tricky car to drive, it's quite slippery, but we're getting ready for the start of this one.
It is a car that can be very unstable when it comes to the thick of things. Fantastic straight line speed, but in some of the medium and low speed corners, it does have the tendency to not give you all of your required grip, but that's just an issue that every driver of this McLaren has to deal with. And we're actually going to come towards the penultimate corner now. We've already gone through that triple right-hander, turn number 16, 17, and 18, which is absolutely fantastic in high downforce machines. Not too shabby at all either in these GT3 cars. Pace car then down on towards the lane. Field under the control then of Jost, driver of the number 1 McLaren. Hits it for the green flag. We'll go racing here at the Circuit of the Americas. Very clean start from the entirety of your field. Single file pretty much immediately as they hit the brakes up into turn 1. This can be a cause for concern on a lot of race starts, but everyone manages to get themselves through there relatively cleanly. So it's Jost from Merrick, from Vizzolini right now, and James Wallace has gained himself a position over Pauvert, and Horwood still at the back of the field.
Yeah, certainly are at the moment as the field just going through the S's here. Really tricky part of the circuit, especially in this car. You've got the weight transfer of the car, and depending on the setup, it can be a little bit too loose around there. But up over the hill, down towards the hairpin for the long back straightaway, and Jace Merrick in that second place, putting a little bit of a battle on here as they go into the back straight now. Look ahead, and it's Ross Jost who's in the lead, getting that slipstream though, Jace, and you might have a chance of gaining a little bit of time here.
Yeah, exactly. That's just what he needs to do. He was only a third of a second behind Ross Jost on Ross Jost or Ross Jost. Which one is it?
Well, I'm a Yorkshireman, so I'm saying Jost.
Okay, Ross Jost then. We're going to call him right at the front of the field. But Jace was only about, a third of a second behind in qualifying. So if he can find a little bit more race pace in his qualifying, he could actually challenge for the race win at the end of things. But the thing is, it's about of a 1.3 seconds is the gap right at the front of your field right now. The closest any two cars are out there on circuit are Vizzolini and James Wallace as they hit their way through the triple right for the first time under racing conditions. And it's been very calm and collected, very quiet.
Yeah, well, I mean, you would expect it to be quite calm like that at the start with so few cars on the grid. And I was saying before the start of the broadcast here, if there had been an accident, a pilot at turn 1, I would have actually laughed my head off. But there you go, we got away clean, and James Wallace just getting up to the back of that McLaren in front, down the hill once again through turn 2. This long sweeping right-hander. We'll stay on board with James actually as we head into the S's. Different lines taken up, that's why.
Oh no, that is a huge spin from Vizzolini there, driver of the number 3 machine. Completely messed up his entry line into the S's, and that is what can result. Actually tapped the brakes, which perhaps did a little bit more harm than good there, coming down into that section, and now he's got himself stuck behind the number 4 of Pauvert here. So he's dropped all the way back through the field towards what is going to be P number 6. When all is said and done, but it does mean that we might get a battle between himself and Pauvert. We also might get a battle between Ware and Wallace as well if those guys close up over the next few laps.
He's lucky that there's plenty of runoff there through the S's, so back up and running now, back to live pictures here, and Vizzolini is probably in the slipstream of the car in front of Frederic Pauvert. Oh, and he's run wide as Pauvert. Through goes Vizzolini, and that was all rather too easy, really.
Yeah, that was a little too easy. The braking zone, it is such a heavy braking zone down into that corner, and a lot of drivers do have trouble with that turn number 12 braking zone because it's such a wide corner to entry. Like the entry space, you can just take any line you want into that corner, but you do have to get it slowed down so much, which does catch a couple of drivers out, and especially if you're on a single screen on the entry to the corner on that outside, you can't even see the apex if you're on a single screen. So that's where some mistakes come from.
People who have either triple monitor setups or have VR really do well at this circuit. They really do prosper around here because of the fact that you can look to the apexes, because they are blind in some points if you are on a single monitor setup. So definitely those with VR or with triple screens should have a little bit of an advantage being able to see their apexes. That's the word I was going to look for. It's because I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm bringing up the graphics there just so you can keep an eye on where your favourite driver is. 7-car grid. Ross Yost in the lead by 2.4 seconds. Your closest battle is that one between Ware and Wallace.
This is as they snake up the hill then towards the end of the first sector. It's an absolutely fantastic section of racetrack, is that first sector. Of course, it borrows a lot from Silverstone's Maggots and Beckett's, borrows a lot from Suzuka as well, especially the latter part of that section. And I kind of do like the philosophy that this Circuit of the Americas has. It's just basically taken some of the best bits from other circuits and just gluing them together, and it somehow works.
It certainly does somehow work. Trying to apologies for the little bit of sound imbalance between the two commentators there, but we should be fine now. But yeah, it is a fun track to race on. It's certainly when I've taken part in other GT3 championships in private leagues, you've seen how that people are able to get moves done, being able to change places and to try and make it through and do the cutbacks and things like that. It does promote really good racing when you've got a bit of a bigger field than this, unfortunately. But you know, these guys, they've got the opportunity of taking a victory here and taking a step towards a good result in this McLaren Shadow series. And in fact, James Horwood has had a Adam Horwood has had a spin at the penultimate corner.
Yes, he has. What has happened here? I think it's just a little bit of driver error. Gets the car tempted to be slowed down, but just some entry oversteer that Adam has had to deal with through that corner. Car just swapped ends, and luckily there was no one around him to be able to get caught up in that sort of incident. But it does mean that he does drop even more towards the back of the field compared to where he was. He's still completely dead last, but I think this is one of those situations where if you just get to the end, if you're a driver like the driver of number 7, you've basically had an achievement. Yeah,
you know, end of the day, this has been open to everybody, including rookies, on this series. And me and Will last week were mentioning about how you don't improve if you don't drive against better drivers, and you know, compete against better people or more experienced people. So that's where we basically, you know, it's good that it's open to rookies in this series, because it's giving people an opportunity. As actually contact between Ware and Wallace into the left-hander at the end of the long straight.
Oh, and Wallace is going to go for the inside on the succeeding corner as well. I think Ware's having a little bit of an issue with damage. Perhaps no, he's getting back out there and up to pace then. But that was an almighty dive. Oh my words, that is...
I think Ware was having issues going into that corner anyway, because he had quite the sizable gap between the two of them. And he's still looking like to be having issues now, but we're on replay anyway. He slows right down and turns in right when there's a car there. So, yeah, you got all that space and you still make contact.
Yeah, there was basically a country mile between those two cars, yet they still somehow hit each other. Don't even ask me how that happened, but that is just the way things sometimes turn out. It's currently your race leader, Ross Yost, then getting himself a 3-second gap across the line. That has come down over the past first sector, though. Jason Merrick able to put in those very good apexes. The line through... how to be fast through this first sector is just so line dependent. If you mess up any part of it, especially early on, then for the next apexes you're just put completely off and you're losing yet more time and more time and more time. It's like Suzuka, where you can just gain and lose 2 seconds easy.
It's a circuit that actually, if you go just that little bit slower than you think that you can do, you actually end up with a better line through that assist, and therefore end up being quicker overall, rather than going in as fast as you can, then getting your line slightly wrong before you know it. You've messed up one, which leads into the other, which leads into the other. It's all about the flow, is this track, especially that first sector. And if you get into the flow of this track, then you can gain so much time through that first sector, and even through this final sector of the course as well, through this tight, twisty section, heading before the triple right-hander. You know, it's a track that rewards patience on your throttle, but also rewards being smooth as well.
Yeah, it really does. Even though you do have the huge, just sort of acres of runoff on the outside of these corners, it's very, very typical Tilke design. It's still a track that does challenge you, even though the repercussions for tracking out wide just aren't there. And it's a track like this where I just, you know, I would just, this track would be just ideal for me if there wasn't those huge amounts of runoff. If there was grass and gravel on the exit of these corners, this would actually be one of the best tracks.
I don't know, it's still a pretty good track. I enjoy it. I know a lot of people don't enjoy it because it's a challenge, and that's half the appeal of it. And you can overtake here as well. So, yeah, definitely we've got a good track. We've got a good car in the McLaren MP4-12C GT3 car, and we've got some good drivers as well. So let's see how they get on in this one. The gaps have just, your field has just spread out a little bit. We will show you the standings here. Rossi Ost in the lead ahead of Jace Merrick, who's now 3.4 behind. And look at that, down to third place, 19.8 seconds behind the leader in this one. So that field spread already up to a minute, down to Adam Horwood in 7th.
Since the gaps have all spread up and there's not much to talk about in terms of the racing action, we've got about the same average overtakes as your average Formula 1 event, but so we're going to go on board here. It's true. That's the only thing I can say, but we're going to go on board with your race leader, in fact. This is Ross Yost, and he is currently setting the pace right at the front. Fastest laps of anyone all the time. that was a little ride on board then with your race leader, Ross Yost. That's a name that we're not used to seeing, but he's been doing rather well, at least in this event. And of course, in the rounds previous as well, he has featured. But the battle right now that we're going to look at is James Wallace versus Martin Ware. And if I'm recalling correctly, Paul, these guys have come together already.
Yeah, they have, as Visalini has had a little spin. That's at the penultimate corner. Adam Horwood, I believe, had a little spin there as well on that last lap while we're on board with the leader. So it's been a corner that's caught out a few people. But yeah, these two, of course, were the two that got into the side of each other down at turn number 12. So definitely these two, they'll want to come back together and have a bit of a battle. But actually, we're catching up 0.9 of a second. Last lap, 0.3 the lap before that faster. So he's gaining on James.
Yep, he is, and you see those lap delta times right at the bottom right-hand corner of your screen. So that is all you need to know. The green is all you need to know to know that this driver is catching the driver ahead. But we're very deep on the brakes then into turn number 11. Hops over the curb a little bit. That's going to mean he's a little bit later on the power as the car has to settle before he gets the power down, even though the traction control is in effect of these GT3 cars. We're going to slip in the slipstream now down towards turn number 12, gesturing towards the inside. This corner is so inviting with how wide the entry is. Make sure you get that car slowed down. Make sure you don't turn in too harshly, Wallace. And that is the position gained there from Martin Ware. Just textbook move. Yep,
absolutely. As you'd expect, down the inside there, use the slipstream. We'll get a replay of that because why not? We can do that. So it was all about the run out of the corner before that, getting right up close behind, and he got onto the tail of James Wallace. And if we look back from James, then you'll be able to see. There he is, looks down the inside, onto the brakes. Wallace was just a little bit earlier on the brakes. They were both a bit timid. I suppose after that contact that they had earlier, that they were going to be a little bit timid, but they got back, got through okay. No contact between the two of them. And we're now back to live pictures. There's still about half a second between them as they go across the line.
Yeah, exactly. Actually, Martin Ware going very, very close to that pit wall, even though there is absolutely no need to. Careful on the brakes up into this first turn, because it is such a tricky first turn. It's an uphill braking zone, meaning you do actually have to, you can actually brake a little bit later than you otherwise would do if it was flat. But the thing is, the track then drops away at the top of the hill, and then you have to turn into the corner. So managing that sort of weight shift in the car and also hitting a tight apex is one of the trickiest turn ones on the entire iRacing service. I would argue they're up in well, up here in the circuit of the Americas, and whereas we're going up towards the highest point in terms of the elevation on the circuit, or one of the highest points, before you drop then back all the way down the hill then towards turn number 11. And Wallace, he actually still has a chance here to get the pass back on Martin Ware, especially Ware's going to have a catastrophic missed apex like that. He will get a good exit as a result of the wide entry though, but that is just the mistakes that can and do slip in, especially from some of the lower rated drivers. As actually we've had Visolini have himself an altercation with the Armco here, and that is going to coming off the top of the hill just after the S's section. Car breaks away.
Yeah, let's have a look at that then on replay. Looking at Visolini over the top of the hill, and around goes the back end. That just bumps the Armco, so it shouldn't have done too much damage. And in fact, he's back up and running now. We've still got that battle between Wallace and Ware going on track. Lap 9 of this race already, so this has flown by. Onto lap 10 of the race. So we're counting down, 5 to go in this one, and Ross Yost has been moving forward 6.4 seconds ahead now, ahead of second place in this race.
Yeah, just absolute dominance from the driver with 2,682 iRating, highest iRating driver in this field right now, although that isn't saying much considering we have an average of 1,767 But as this battle, I think this battle for P number 3 now is just going to eke out bit by bit by bit, as long as Ware doesn't make mistakes like that up in towards turn number 1. Just gives a little bit of time away to Wallace when you have a missed apex like that. But I've already gone over the fact of how difficult that turn 1 actually is for any driver, no matter if you're amateur or pro. There we go. That's James Wallace around. And, oh, that is, again, it's a single car spin, and it's single car on entry to the corner that this McLaren just breaks away.
Carrying up too much speed then. Got his line a little bit wrong through the first part of that, and then it's the weight transfer of the car. Around it goes. Not a lot you can do about that once that back end breaks away on this car. But he's back up and running, didn't hit anything, and he's still got about 30 seconds over Frederic Pauvert, who is in 5th place, so absolutely fine, no worries from behind in this one. That means that, well, our one and only battle on track, Connery, has broken up.
Well, that is disappointing, but actually we have a slow car. Slow car. Martin Ware.
What's this happened
He
again?
slowed down on the back straight. What has happened? Has he taken a slowdown penalty somewhere? I have to wonder. No. Or is he just closing up just to give us a fight on the broadcast? I have to wonder if that's what he's doing.
Well, he got it all wrong going into turn 11, and then decided, I need to slow down. Oh, I hit the brakes. Need to slow down. And he's going really slow down there, so...
and Wallace is going even slower, just letting him by. What is happening between these two drivers? I do not understand. Oh, my words. We'll just sort this one out.
Yeah, and, well, the good thing is that it is giving us a bit of a show here at the moment, so it's helping us out here, and... thank you guys if you are doing it to keep the show alive, because these two, the thing is, they've been having a good little battle between the two of them, and it's good to see that on track, and obviously wanting to have a little bit of fun, because one thing, it is really difficult, and this is something that I brought up in the major series that we showed earlier this afternoon on Racesport TV. It's really difficult to be out on your own with nobody around you and keep your concentration up. Even in a sprint race like this, it's so easy to make a mistake, as James nearly loses the back end once again through the S's there, but keeps it going in a straight line there for the time being.
He did have a bit of a wiggle, didn't he, there, coming through the S's section, but is able to recover and not spin it like he did on the previous lap, so that is at least an improvement there for Mr. James Wallace. Is down in towards turn number 11 they go once again. I've noticed that Martin Ware pretty much almost every time down into that corner he's completely missed the apex and instead gone for the wider entry and therefore the better exit. But I'm not sure that is the fastest line through that particular corner. But right now it is still Ross Yost leading the way by about 10 seconds now on the relative timing. It was 9.7 heading across the line. It's up to 10 seconds is the gap for Ross Yost. That's a Maximilian Benecke gap if I've ever seen one. So I guess he can take solace in the fact he's doing an impression of such a fantastic driver. But you know, we got to look at the facts of the situation, Paul. This isn't really the race that we want to be seeing.
No, it's not, and I will say one thing about that line of not hitting the apex going onto the back straight away. It's not actually that crucial to hit the apex. You can take it a little bit wider entry, tighten it up so that you get on the power earlier on the exit there to carry the speed down the straight. So it's not the worst line to take through that corner, but if you actually sort of line astern with another car, then you certainly don't want to be taking that line through there.
Coming up to 2 laps to go then. 2.5 laps if you look on the track map and judge where Ross Yost is. He's just heading his way down the back straight right now. So this event will be over in just about, I would argue, 5 minutes time. looking at the average lap times out there on circuit. So we've got a little bit of time here before the end. And in terms of this whole project, Paul, the whole McLaren Shadow Project, what are your opinions? Because you're taking drivers from, of course, we have the qualifiers here on iRacing, we have qualifiers on other simulators that you could potentially go on as well. So what is your opinion of bringing drivers from different areas of sim racing and bringing them under one roof and just letting them compete in those semi-finals in November?
I think it's good that you do that, because you're spreading your net if you're McLaren. By the way, we have got a track map up at the moment on screen, just to show where everybody is out on track. So your leader has gone across the line now, so it'll be 2 laps to go in this race. But it's a really good concept. I really like the concept. I like how you're bringing people from different areas of sim racing and you're bringing them into one place, because then you can actually find the best people. Because with the McLaren Shadow Project, I don't imagine that they will focus on just one simulator or one computer game. They will spread the wings. They will want some experience from across the board, but you generally find that those that are exceptional in one simulator are generally exceptional in all simulators. So it gives them the best opportunity to find the right people that they want for their team.
And if you look at teams like G2 Esports, teams like Team Redline as well, they don't just compete on one platform. They are pretty much trying to enter any of the big competitions, no matter where they are, and trying to get exposure for their team. And McLaren are very much well aware of this. They want a very well-rounded driver, not just in terms of the racing out there on circuit, but from the experiences that we saw at World's Fastest Gamer, which was last year's event, they also want a driver that is able to communicate with the team, is able to share their thoughts on how the setup is going, how the car feels as well. That sort of driver development feedback is so important, as well as your overall fitness and health as well. And
being able to provide good media coverage as well. We have actually got a battle on field. It's on track. It's 5th and 6th at the moment. It's Frederic Prévert versus Leandro Vizzolini. And there's less than half a second between the two of them. We'll keep an eye on your race leader though, because he's going to be coming up to start his final lap very shortly indeed. In fact, it's going to be almost up in Adam Hallwood as they go across the line. But this battle on track at the moment between these two is going on as your leader has started the final lap here.
A little bit of wiggle there for Vizzolini. Down into the 11 they will go. The apexes are taken relatively correctly through there. And now this is Vizzolini's chance to get himself ahead of Prévert here, because he has the slipstream. This is such a long back straight as you go up and down, the undulations in the racing circuit that have happened because of the way they built the asphalt right on top of the ground below. It has moved a little bit, and unfortunately in the real world has actually caused a little bit of damage to the actual racing surface itself, but thankfully this is a relatively fresh surface when iRacing had scanned this one. But Vizzolini right on the back of Prévert, not able to go for any of these moves down the inside anywhere through the sort of arena section, the sort of the low-speed corner section, and then into this triple right-hander, hugging that inside line, just go out and then back inside for the third apex. Vizzolini is looking to gain a position into P number 5 here, which would be a little bit of a result for him. He did start P number 4, of course, although that was kind of more based on his iRating rather than anything else. But he'll come across the line then, and Prévert to start their final lap. So white flag is going to be out there on circuit. Ross Yost, he's actually gone himself down into turn number 12, 13, 14. So he is coming towards the end, the second half of his lap then. We've still got to have a look at this battle then between Prévert and Vizzolini. Vizzolini, he's not had a chance just yet. He was pretty close coming up in towards turn number 1, but it looks like through the S's, he's going to close up But we're going to have to switch back then to Ross Yost through the penultimate corner. An absolutely flawless race then from the American. P number 1 in qualifying, P number 1 in terms of his car number and iRacing, and P number 1 in the race here in McLaren Shadow. Then we gotta look back to Vizzolini and Povert. They are very close. They're heading their way into turn number 11. Here comes the dive from Leandro Vizzolini, maybe down the inside. Looks for the speed off the corner. It's going to be a drag race all the way down the back straight between these identical McLaren MP4-12Cs. Although there may be a little bit of wing difference depending on how the cars have been set up for the high or low downforce. Low downforce would really benefit them down the back straight, as the tight they will go then in through turn number 12 up through 13 now, and this is where things can get a little bit sketchy. We're coming into the tight and twisty section of the racing circuit. Vizzolini looking for the move. He goes for the move down the inside through the left-hander, tries to squeeze his way through and manages to get himself through as well. And if he can hold on through this triple right, the penultimate corner and the final corner, then he will be P number 5 at the end of this event. And I don't think Povert has anything to give right now through the final couple of corners. So that's Vizzolini gaining himself a position on the last lap up into P number 5. But in terms of our overall race winner, that one goes to Ross Yost.
Yeah, certainly good job. Barely mentioned him. He was that far ahead and ends up taking the win there. Vizzolini, bit of a stick it down there and hope that there's no contact made move, but certainly been at least we had a good little battle there towards the end of the race. But Ross Yost, your race winner, coming round now just on his slow down lap, just celebrating the victory, giving it a little wiggle, and well deserved.
Yep, exactly. We'll go through our official race results right about now. Ross Yost takes the win in one of the final rounds here of the McLaren Shadow Project, taking the race win over Jace Merrick. Martin Ware ends up getting the final step of the podium there for the driver of the number 2 machine. James Wallace gets himself P number 4 after starting P number 6, the only driver to gain positions on his qualifying time. That is qualifying position. That is an important thing to note and a good achievement for him. Vizzolini, P number 5 after starting P number 4, and Povert also loses a position based on his qualifying down into P number 6. And Adam Horwood will finish 1 lap down in P number 7, exactly where he started. That is going to be all we have time for here in the McLaren Shadow qualifiers here on the iRacing service, broadcast live on RaceSpot TV and on the iRacing esports network. I've been Connery Maddock, that's been Paul Smith. We'll join you next week for more GT3 McLaren action. Goodbye.
The following is a presentation of the iRacing Esports Network.